Welcome back to One Foot In. I'm Ohana. He's Winn. I'm not pointing at him, obviously, for obvious reasons, because we are on Zoom, because we're at home for Thanksgiving break. So, few episodes, not in person, showing off the OU merch, showing off the OU background, and we're about to get into that game in a second, actually, because there were a lot of upsets this weekend in college football, which, you know, it felt a lot like that one weekend a few months ago. I forgot what week and what games, but a lot of upsets that week. And that was
I
kind
know
of
what you're
a
talking about. And we
yeah,
were like kind of not talking big about that weekend too. I forget what it
yeah,
was. And then all hell broke loose. And I got to be honest, I feel like this one's kind of the same. I don't think we saw a lot of these coming, obviously.
obviously, and we'll definitely get into that because two of the big upsets were our, our locks, which
It's
I
not
guess let's
chill.
get out of the way quickly. Um, Another 0-2 week. That's three in a row.
God, dude, we're
Um,
terrible.
yeah, you are really on the hot seat this next week. You've got to hit. You've got one more opportunity to hit because you made yourself a bet and
Dude,
you
I'm
saw
not
it.
doing that. I'm not doing that, dude. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna cash. It's chill. It's chill. I'm gonna
It's
cash.
chill,
Easy. Easy money.
easy,
I knew I
easy.
should have taken SMU. I knew it. I knew it. What was I
Probably.
thinking?
It's fine.
All
It's no
right.
big deal. All right. Anyways, let's get into the first upset, which was courtesy of the team on your background and on your shirt, Oklahoma, who welcomed the Alabama Crimson Tide into Norman and beat them 24 to 3 in a game I don't think really anyone saw coming.
Not
And
surprised.
you're not surprised maybe. And I guess looking back, I kind of have I think I have like clear views on it now, but quickly before we get into that, Jackson Arnold, nothing really through the air,
Mm-mm.
but on the ground, Jarnold, as we
Charnel.
call him, 131 rushing yards on 25 carries. I would say you believed in him all year, but you didn't. But you
Nope.
did believe in the team, kind of. You kind of believe you supported the team. You didn't
I
believe in it, but you
supported the
supported.
team. I
You supported the
supported.
team. So I want to let you go ahead and talk about this game.
Well, this is huge because I think this is big for the program of Oklahoma because man, like your first season in the conference and the SEC and before this game they were 1-5 in the SEC. They're 5-5. They had Bama and then they had LSU to close the season out. A lot of people were rightfully nervous that they weren't going to be, in a bowl game, which they have. And like the last time they missed a bowl game, I want to say it was like 1997 or something like that. Yeah, I mean the season was just brutal up to this point. There definitely some games that they should have won, like the Missouri game, and then there were definitely some games where it was just, it just was brutal. South Carolina and Texas, to name a couple. So yeah, I mean, beginning of the game, like it kind of looked like it was going to kind of be the same story. Like, Oklahoma's defense was playing well against Alabama. Offense was kind of flat again. They had a fumble, and as soon as Oklahoma fumbled, I was like, okay, well, this game is over.
Mhm.
Then they score. They go up 10. They beat them in the second quarter. Oklahoma 10, Alabama nothing. Then in the third quarter, 14 nothing, and then no points in the final quarter. Jalen Milroe 3 interceptions in this game, and rushing
Wow.
yards. Milroe only goes 4-7 on
Hmm.
15 carries. I saw a stat earlier. In all three of Alabama's losses this season, Jalen Milroe has 28 rushing yards, a combined through 3 games.
That's shocking.
Alabama, it's unbelievable. Alabama is way too reliant on Milroe. They couldn't run the ball with their running backs. Um, their defense didn't play terrible because Oklahoma gave them some opportunities, but still, I mean, they gave up 260 yards on the ground. Alabama's defense did. So that in and of itself, I mean, that's why Arnold only had to throw for 68 yards. But yeah, I mean, three turnovers by Milroe is pretty inexcusable. And that's just the way it goes. And that's the way. I mean, if you told me before that Oklahoma was going to outgain Alabama, I would have been shocked, and I'd have been like, okay, well then Alabama probably won on big explosive plays and not running the ball. Then you tell me Milroe throws the ball three interceptions, and you're just like, well, hold on a second, like what's going on here? I mean, they only got one sack on Milrow too, only four tackles for loss. So really, I mean, this game just came down to Alabama just didn't play well. They just didn't play well. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Oklahoma, obviously, because you know that I wanted those Sooners to pull it out, and I wanted them to make a bowl game, which they are. Shout out.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's hard to kind of put a compass on this. It is a different program, obviously, without Nick Saban,
Yeah,
and like that's the reality. And if you don't want to admit that, then I think that you're naive. And look, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. That's the greatest college football coach ever, probably, arguably. He's not. It's
definitely.
not gonna. It's not gonna. Definitely, right? It's not going to be the same thing. And Alabama had guys transfer out. They've had their ups and downs in the season. But I will say, like, it is wild that a team like Alabama, they're just so bipolar. I mean, they smoked LSU. Made LSU look
Hmm.
horrible, and then they go into Norman and they look like a team that is terrible. Like they just
Yeah.
look bad. And Oklahoma did what they needed to do. So shout out to the Sooners. And I mean, we're gonna get into what the playoff picture looks like later. But I think Alabama's bounced. Like I feel like they have to be three
Hmm.
losses, and that's a bad one. Losing to a team with four wins.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Alabama's losses, they're all pretty bad. I mean, there's not like
Pax
they don't
Vanderbilt's
have,
not a good one.
yeah, they don't have quality losses, which obviously is
No.
huge for the committee with the SEC. But yeah, I think you kind of hit it with Milrow's inconsistencies pretty much. I think that's kind of the story of the team. And he's as inconsistent as it gets. And when he's having a bad game, it all kind of just snowballs on them and they're not very good. And they lose. That's pretty much what it is. It's pretty much all it is, actually. And that's why I don't really buy him as an NFL prospect. And obviously, we'll get to that later in the year. But I don't buy him. He's way too inconsistent for me. And I know, obviously, a lot of guys with inconsistencies have been drafted very high very recently. But I don't
Anthony
think he's got the
Richardson.
upside. Yeah, I don't think he's got the the high end talent that Anthony Richardson had.
No.
Um, and yeah, the team kind of just goes as he goes, and I think they'll be fine in the long run. I mean, I think Kalen DeBoer is a great coach, and I'm
Yeah.
not really worried about them in that sense. But yeah, I think their season's pretty much over in terms of playoffs, and yeah, we'll touch on that more later. But I agree with you there, and I think that's pretty much like I was confused by. I think we both were confused by Alabama earlier in the year, and we
Well,
talked about
I
it a
didn't even
lot.
have him. I don't even think I had him in my initial playoff, or maybe I
Yeah,
did. Yeah. And
no, and then you added them later on after
after they
the
beat
Georgia game
Georgia.
probably.
Yeah.
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 And we were high on them then, and then it was like then they lost and we're like we don't really know what this team is. We don't think they're very good, blah blah. Blah. But I think now it's pretty clear what this team is.
Yeah.
When Milrow's good, they're good. When Milrow's bad, they're bad. They can't overcome his volatility, and that's pretty much the story of their season, the story of the 2024 Crimson Tide. And I think it's not really that confusing anymore.
Yep.
So that's pretty much that's pretty much all that game was, really, to
That's
me.
it.
And
Yep.
so I think we pretty much covered that one, um,
Boomer.
as well as we need to. And yeah, shout out to Oklahoma. That's a big win. Brent Venables, that's a big
Huge.
win. I know a lot of people
On
want him fired.
yeah, definitely on a bit of a hot seat, as they like to say. I'm glad to see him off of it. All right,
Hmm.
next game. Oh
Go take over on this one.
God, man, this game really drove me crazy. Auburn beats A&M 43 to 41. If you watched our last episode, you know that my lock of the week was A&M minus 2.5. Okay. Going into Auburn at night. Now, the more I think about it, the more I should have been smarter and have been like, okay, Jordan Hare at night. Auburn doesn't have anything to lose anymore. They're going to play with everything they've got, and that's what they did. But
Mm.
in fairness, like, God, man, A&M was down 21 to nothing with like 5 minutes into the second quarter. Into the second
Hmm.
quarter. Because I mean, I think A&M overlooked this game. And you briefly mentioned this in our last episode, I believe. Like, oh, A&M's overlooking it. They're thinking too much about Texas. Da, 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 da. They looked flat.
Hmm.
They looked like they had no heart. I mean, their secondary got destroyed by Peyton Thorne. Like
Yep.
what? Like that's a sentence no one said. I think all year long. Destroyed by Peyton Thorne. So many explosive plays to the point where I'm sitting there watching, being like, "What is going on right now?" Now, let me say this: I was not. I immediately was not super concerned. Dude, the
Hmm.
fact that A&M gave up 469 total yards is atrocious. I was
Yeah.
not overly concerned because I knew that, like, okay, this is weird, but I think A&M going to come back. They're letting up explosive plays. Like, come on, let's go. Then A&M, they get it rolling a little bit. They get it rolling. They score 7 in the second quarter. They gave up another 7, 21-7. And then in the third quarter, they win that quarter 14-7. Okay, cool. Fourth quarter, they get it going. They're like, okay, here we go. And then, like, then we're in overtime. I'm like, you got to be kidding me right
Yeah.
now. The game was just, God, man, it
Well,
was
I thought when it got to overtime, I thought you were probably a little sigh of relief because at that point it felt like, okay, they're gonna cover the 2.5 if they win. If they win, they're gonna have to cover the 2.5 in this
right,
in
right.
one of these overtimes. And then yeah,
And well,
kept
and then,
going.
well, A&M was up by 3 points in the fourth quarter, right? So I'm like, great, I'm cool. There's less than 2 minutes left. Auburn has the ball. I'm not worried. I want A&M here. And Auburn went down the field. Peyton Thorne ran for like 20 something yards on one play. I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now, dude. What is going on? And man, like it was just ridiculous. So they go down the field, they get the field goal. I'm like, dude, come on right now. And A&M also got a pick deep in Auburn's territory, and they couldn't score a touchdown off of it. So look, A&M, you lost your season because of this game. Like even if you beat Texas, I don't even think you're going to be in the playoffs. You shouldn't be in the playoffs. You're out of the SEC championship game now. We're going to talk more about this later. But man, I was crushed watching this game. Like I was
Well,
just pissed.
so they're actually not out of the SEC championship game. If they beat Texas, they're in the SEC. They're
Okay,
not
but
out of
they're
it.
not they're not in the SEC championship. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
winning
they're
it.
not in it. Yeah, essentially, I agree with that. They're gonna Texas is gonna win. I think. Um, no reason to doubt that. But yeah, the double once it got to 2 point to triple overtime, and it was 2 point conversions. That was brutal for
Look,
your lock because it was over at that point. Um,
outside of the terrible start, like the terrible start and the explosive plays, Auburn kind of was beating them the whole rest of the game. Had you told me that they dropped down 21-0 in a quarter and a half, well then that's different. But like, I mean, I said, I said if Auburn or if A&M doesn't cover that 2.5, then they are going to be more disappointed in themselves than I'm going to be disappointed in them. And I
mhm.
feel like that reigns true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
But I'm
that's a
still
terrible
gutted.
loss.
It was a
That's a
brutal
terrible
loss.
loss. You just can't lose that game for if you're
No.
trying to make the playoff. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the time of possession was, you look at the time of possession. Texas A&M had the ball 13 more minutes than Auburn. Auburn had the ball 23 minutes and scored 43 points, which is not something that the Auburn Tigers, this version of the Auburn Tigers, should ever be able to do. But they did it, and
A&M
that
just
was
came
pretty
out
much,
so flat, and we're just playing catch up the
yeah,
rest of the game. And in a road environment, that's really tough to do.
yep, that was it. All right, well,
And Marcel Road threw a bad pick too.
he did throw a bad pick. That's tough. I mean, he wasn't even terrible. I mean, but yeah, not a good pick. Don't
Thumbs
want to throw
down.
those. Um, okay, on to the game that we actually differed on in the predictions. And one of us was right, obviously, as it generally works when, there's two teams and one outcome and we pick the different teams.
Thank you.
And that's the game that we were both in attendance for in the swamp in Gainesville, Florida Ole Miss. Now, you picked Ole Miss to win this game. You picked Florida to cover the spread, which was 10.5, which we both thought was I don't want to say a ridiculous spread because we respected Ole Miss and we talked about how much we respect Ole Miss, but we disagreed with the spread and we said Florida was going to cover. And now I took Florida to win with a little nudge, but I got there and I
Yeah.
I picked them and they won, which was unbelievable. They knocked number nine Ole Miss essentially out of the playoff.
Yep.
Again, we'll get to that, but they beat a team that now averages 40.2 points per game. They held them to 17 points, and I think that's really where I really want to touch on the most. Love the background is DJ Lagway is going to get most of the attention, rightfully so, from the media. And it's already started, by the way, which is pretty awesome to see. The DJ Lagway 2027 number one pick hype, the Heisman hype, all of that hype, the generational hype. It's already started in the media, which I think is great because it's warranted and I buy it completely. But this defense for
Yep.
Florida, the improvement that they've made has been unbelievable. And ultimately, yeah, I think this turnaround from them, obviously the turnaround be where would you say the turnaround started? I would say it feels like this team has been different
Since like the bye week, really.
since the bye week, I guess. Yeah, I
But I
mean,
would give it, I would say even before that, but like, I
I
would say
mean,
Kentucky.
can
Kentucky.
can
Because it went
well, so
Kentucky, bye week, Georgia. But then
yeah.
Texas.
Well, so
Yeah,
but they showed signs of it before. They showed, I mean,
they
they
did.
scored 45 against Mississippi State. Which whatever, Mississippi that there was still things to clean up defensively there. That wasn't a great defensive performance. Then they beat the UCF team that we both thought would beat them pretty handily. At that point, it was still Florida's bad in our minds, and then they beat UCF, and then it was Tennessee, which they should have won, and that was kind of like there's something there. They're not the
Yeah,
defense
but
hurt
that
Tennessee.
honestly ripped my heart out more for that team because I'm like,
Yeah,
you're gonna go in and lose that game. How the hell are you gonna get back on your feet?
well, yeah. So that's what you'd think. And then they blow out Kentucky, and then the Georgia game happens, and they're beating Georgia with Lagway before he gets hurt. And then Texas, you could throw that out. That was Aiden Warner start to finish. Doesn't really matter. And then LSU, and they beat LSU in the Swamp last week. And then it's like, oh wait, this team actually has turned their season around, and they're good. They're probably gonna make a bowl game when they beat Florida State. They'll probably lose to Ole Miss, but still gonna make a bowl game. And it's clearly a different team, and the team didn't quit on Billy. And then they beat Ole Miss, and it's like, okay, this actually is a good team. Um, and now they're riding really high because they're locked
Yeah.
into that bowl game. They've got the 6 wins. They're gonna play Florida State on Saturday, final game of the regular season. They should win that, let's be honest.
They'll win that game.
If they lose that game, then honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Well, we might touch on that game, but I don't know if it matters if they lose that game. I mean, it does. That'd be a bad loss, but kind of weird. You already got these great wins that I don't know how much it matters. But anyways, I kind of just think for Florida, it's Lagway is a force of nature, and all tides rise with him. Essentially, he's this once in a lifetime guy at quarterback, and then the defense has been unbelievable, and it's been those two things. And Napier, credit to him, he's obviously not going to lose his job. That vote of confidence, one of the rare times when a vote of confidence seems to work out. Um, so that's kind of interesting. But yeah, it doesn't seem to have failed. Now, Ole Miss, I think, for, I don't want to say more interesting, but this is an unmitigated disaster for Ole Miss because I don't know if they're out, if this program is going to reach the heights they reached this year again with the
No.
current iteration of Ole Miss because they went all in on this year, on this season. They brought in the transfers. They paid a ton of money. They built the team up. Guys came here to make the playoffs. That was the plan. And now they're gonna miss the playoffs. And guys are gonna opt out of bowl games and they're gonna transfer and they're gonna graduate. And guys just aren't gonna be there anymore. And it's like it feels like they missed a window to me. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, when they beat Georgia, I mean, that's everybody. The country was like, "Oh, okay, Ole Miss is in the playoff. They're gonna do their thing." Blah blah
They could
blah
be the
blah blah
best
blah
team in the
blah.
country on any given night.
Yep, and Florida's beat them. Like Florida's beat them,
Yeah.
and it was weird because I'm like watching this game, and I'm like, Florida scores first. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but regression to the mean. Ole Miss takes the lead again, and then Florida just takes it back, and then they just keep going. I mean, Ole Miss's problem was the offense just wasn't balanced enough. I mean, they only were really scoring on deep shots. Maybe not only deep shots, but they were, finding Trey Harris in the end zone and things like that. I mean, Jackson Dart led their rushing, the second highest rusher.
And
Micah
his helmet
Davis was,
came off after every run. Seemed
oh
like
my
it.
God, unbelievable. There were three Ole Miss fans in front of me, and I said to them, why doesn't he strap his helmet in? Well, I don't know. I'm like, no, really? Like he's gonna get his
Hmm.
head taken off. Like, what is he doing?
And he's
Oh,
got to
I don't know.
come out for a
Every
play after
time,
every time.
so stupid. Yeah, but their next highest rusher, 27 yards. I mean, just they weren't able to balance it, and then when Florida was able to limit most of the explosives, helped by two picks by Jackson Dart, who absolutely crashed out at the end of that game. I don't know what he was doing.
Unreal.
Florida, they've got such a good two-headed running monster with Montrell Johnson and Jaden Baugh, and even Jacoby Jackson getting in
Yeah,
there and
I
picking
feel
it
like it's
up.
three-headed.
Yeah,
Jacoby
I mean,
Johnson was was really playing well when Montreal was out.
yeah, like I mean, there was nothing to me that super jumped off this game for Florida's offense other than just Lagway's able to make plays that Graham Mertz wasn't able to make before this. That's just the pure truth, and they're able to keep their offense on the field for longer. But then it's Florida's defense. I mean, you have four sacks. You have Caleb Banks making 2.5 sacks. The D line looked good. Banks and Sapp. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, where was this earlier in the season? But they don't really care as much because they would tell you what, Florida would much rather win the last two games they've won than like the Tennessee game and some other one than lose these other two. So yeah, there's a wave coming over Gainesville right now, right? As me and Eitan are leaving.
Yeah, bad timing, but you know what? Gave us a nice little send off.
Great
Um,
way to end.
Great way to end.
Great
Got
way
some
to
picks
end.
with
Shout
Albert.
out.
Shout out Albert.
Shout out.
Um, but yeah, great way to end. You know, probably the worst 4 year stretch of Florida football. Um,
Gotta love
in
it.
Florida football history. But two final awesome games,
And
and
a bowl game.
a bowl game, and the freshmen and sophomores. Good for them, I guess. They get to
Beating
watch
beating
like a
Brian
great
Kelly and
team.
Lane Kiffin are such good ways to go out for me. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, definitely Brian Kelly. If it was swapped, if you went out on a Brian Kelly win and like Lane Kiffin last week, that would probably be ideal
I'm
for
good to
you.
I don't like Lane Kiffin either.
Oh,
But
really? Yeah. Oh, I
but I
guess.
really
Yeah.
don't like Brian Kelly.
Yeah. You really don't like Brian Kelly.
It's chill.
Anyways, anyways, we both make locks of the week, and it's time for me to get to mine. Um, because this was another upset. The Kansas Jayhawks um beat Colorado 37-21. Colorado 3-point favorites in this one. I thought this was money. Thought this was a lock, obviously. And instead, I have to watch clips of guys diving at Shitter Sanders' knees
Dude,
and him doing like flips all over the field from it, like potential season enders all over the place. I have to watch Kansas drop 31 and 3 weeks in a row now upset a ranked Big 12 team, which you start 1-5. I mean, Kansas and Florida really are the two surprise teams, or the two most impressive teams even of the second half of the season. It's like, where was this?
yeah.
If you did this a whole year, you'd be in the playoff. But now it's just here's the thing: Colorado, they no longer control their own destiny. They're not in position to make the conference championship game. um, based on their own play. They're going to need things to break their way next week. And for me, that's a bummer because I really like Colorado and I enjoyed watching Colorado and was rooting. We were both rooting for Colorado to
We
make the
wanted them
playoff.
in the playoff. We were
We
so
wanted them.
adamant about that.
And listen, I've said the past few weeks, past few months that they have the two best players on the field um, in most games they're in. And so I felt like that would be enough for them to get to the Big 12 championship game and to win it. Because I felt, they had, especially in the Big 12, they had the two best players by a wide margin, and the team disparities wasn't going to hurt them the way it would in the playoff against the SEC teams, against Oregon and Ohio State. Guess I was wrong. I don't know. I mean, clearly wrong this week. And now it's, what is it, three in a row? We've got three in a row wrong. Um, I guess that was our lock recap. We usually do it in one segment, rip it off back to back, but kind of extended it here, little spacing in between. And yeah, we're a combined 0 for 6 the past 3 weeks, which is never ideal. It's not if you've been trailing our picks, whoops, not great. Probably don't want to do that. But honestly, no, because we're both gonna get it right this week. It's not time for that yet, but we'll both get it right. So yeah,
Simple.
simple. Honestly, bet ev the total sum of what you've bet the past 3 weeks. Bet that exact amount on this week, and I mean, you'll make it back and then some. I'll just say that. Not financial advice. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that game.
I was surprised. Like
Yeah.
that's really the only way I could put it. Like I watched it back and I was just like, what am I looking at right now? Like I was surprised. And one of the big things that we talked about was like, okay, Colorado has everything to lose, right? And everything to gain. And I thought that the makeup of that team and that coaching staff and whomever, like I thought that that was just going to be the way that it was, but no, it was not. It was not at all. I felt like Shador Sanders just was getting pressured all game long. Like he couldn't get time to do what he needed to
Yeah.
do. And again, I feel like a consistent factor with Colorado is that when they play teams that are a bit more complete or well-rounded, they really struggle because I feel like there are some times when Colorado is trying to rely everything on Hunter and Sanders, and why shouldn't they? They Colorado couldn't run the ball at all.
Mm-mm,
They
mm-mm.
they
The
they
leading
couldn't.
rusher was Shedeur Sanders,
Yeah,
who
with 26 yards.
I think a lot of people have this perception of Shedeur Sanders that he's this dual threat athletic guy. Mm-mm. Shedeur Sanders should not be your leading rusher. He is not a Jalen Milrow. Like, should not happen.
Well, another Big 12 game that I think it's important to talk about real quick is Arizona State beating BYU.
Another
I
tough one for
mean,
us.
another tough one for us. All of the teams that we wanted. Well, actually, that's not true. But our Big 12 teams just went down the tubes, and then
Yeah,
our Big 10 team went down the tubes, which we'll talk about in a second.
yeah.
Look, Arizona State just like they're on a 4 game win streak in the Big 12. Now they're
I
at the
mean,
top of the
the
conference.
top of the conference out of nowhere.
Unbelievable. I think BYU was riding just this wave so heavy, and then as soon as it started to fall, everything just started to fall with it. I mean, BYU even had chances to come back and get it, and they didn't. I mean, they threw picks, and it was just Arizona State, and then they all rushed the field, and the refs tried to put a second back on the clock. That was ridiculous.
That was ridiculous.
If you haven't seen that, you should go Google that.
Shout out. Google it.
The Arizona State coach is lit though. That guy's awesome. Such a
Kenny
tweaker.
Dillingham.
Kenny
He was not
Dillingham is
happy about the
awesome.
1 second.
He was not happy about the 1 second. He should. I would have been pissed. I wouldn't have even listened to any of those guys. But yeah, BYU, another team, had it all, had everything to lose, had everything to gain, lost it all. So there you go.
You, you know, Jake Retzlaff, I'm not gonna bring up his stat line because I don't want to do that.
Do it.
Because I am
Do
biased
it.
towards Jake Retzlaff. I like Jake Retzlaff, so I'm not gonna mention the stats. But I will say BYU, obviously 9-0 start. One of my favorite phrases from last year around the Philadelphia Eagles, who started 10-1 and then collapsed, was that they were in a supernatural funk. A supernatural funk caught them. I think the BYU Cougars might have been caught by the supernatural
Ooh.
funk. I might have been it might have been passed on to them because bless you. A 9-0 start with two straight losses. Just not great. And this is a team that we were high on and we supported and we championed, and now they're gone. I mean, I think it's fair to say they're cooked.
They're
They are
cooked.
cooked. They're
They're
cooked.
cooked.
They're not going to make the playoff. They're not going to make the Big 12 champ. They're probably going to lose next week. Who do they play next week? Um,
Houston
Houston. They might win that game, but it's just not great.
doesn't matter.
They're doesn't matter. It doesn't even if they somehow luck into the Big 12 championship game, they're not winning. So BYU still a great season. You know what? Just got caught by the funk, and that's okay. It happens.
It's not okay, but it happens.
I mean, it's not up to them. It caught them. You know,
Oh, it's
it
not
makes
their
its
fault
way.
that they lost.
It's not their fault that they got the supernatural funk. It's supernatural for a reason. It's not, we can't understand. It's not from this earth. So they're just the unlucky ones that have to bear the burden of the shame. But look at the Eagles this year. So BYU 2025. Place your bets now. Just saying. Anyways, that's enough of that. That's enough upset talk. Now we can get into a game that I suppose wasn't an upset in betting odds, wasn't an upset to the general public. For
Was upset
us,
for
it
us.
made us
Yeah.
upset. I will say that probably. Uh, let's just say we picked the other team, but let's get into that. We both, when talking about this game, this Big Ten match of the year, like, well, it really wasn't because the Big Ten match of the year was really Oregon, Ohio State.
Yeah.
Um, but we thought this could be the Big Ten match of the year because of the implications, and that's Indiana, Ohio State. And we obviously have been high on Indiana the entire year, and we picked Indiana to win the game. We picked Indiana to beat Ohio State. We both said it would be a high scoring, close game, but Indiana would come out on top. Started off looking good. It did start off looking good. 7-0 Indiana. But then from there, it kind of well, it snowballed. And listen, we could talk about, at the end of the game, that little, QB kneel that turned into a sneak touchdown for Ohio State, which was kind of just them like essentially saying, and I think that was a message that was a big part of the reason why um Ohio State won the game, which was they heard a lot of the talking done by Kurt Signetti specifically from Indiana side. And they said, and they probably also heard the media noise and people like us, picking Indiana to win. And they said, no, we're still Ohio State, and we are going to shut Kurt Signetti up and let them know who we are and that they're new here. They're new to this winning stuff, but you know, they're new to it, we're true to it, as they say. And so Ohio State flexed their muscles in this game pretty much. And Indiana just, well, maybe they just weren't ready for big time. Now they're still going to make the playoff, I think. Again, we're going to get to that in a bit, but I think they're fine there. I just don't think they can compete on the level that they're going to need to compete once the playoff comes. And for Ohio State, that defense it's as elite as it gets. It's as talented as it gets. You held this Indiana offense that's been humming all year to 15 points, 151 total yards of offense. Curtis Work to 8 of 18 passing for 68 yards. Caleb Downs is unbelievable. He's a complete superstar. He even had a 79-yard punt return touchdown. So he can pretty much do anything. He's just a total star. And yeah, I kind of just think Ohio State heard all the talking from Indiana, from Signetti, from the media, that even though a lot of the media, well, been critical of the media the past few weeks for how they've talked about Indiana. But from the Indiana side of the media, they've just heard it all. And they came out and they said, we're going to shut it down. And they shut it down. So,
Look, I know that, like, I think a lot of people would say that they want us to sit here and apologize maybe about missing our pick. But you know what? I'm not going to do it.
mm-mm,
Why?
mm-mm,
Look, Ohio State beat Indiana. Okay. I'm not taking that away from them at all. That happened. But when we were making our pick,
mm-hmm.
did we think that their punter was going to muff a snap and give them the ball on, like, what, the 10-yard line? But within the 10-yard line? No.
Uh-uh.
It was 7-7 at that point. Did we know that Indiana was going to punt in on their first drive out of the halftime punt and it be brought back 79 yards for a touchdown? No, we
Mm.
didn't. Now look, you could say, look, the punt, the muffed punt, there's like that's just like there's nothing there's that's not Ohio State doing well, that's just an error. So
Hey, Ole Miss
that's
had one of
just
those too. Shout out.
shut up.
Shout out.
No, Ole Miss was a muffed punt. This one I'm talking about, the
Oh yeah,
Indiana
yeah,
punter
yeah.
got the
Well, yeah,
snap and it went through his hands, which was just a freak
yeah.
fluke accident.
Punt
And that kind of
mishaps.
changed. That just kind of changed the game. And then the Indiana punt touchdown, and then from there on, it was just Ohio State's defense. Look, this is what I will say. This is what I'll say. Ohio State is a better team. Okay, and you and I never
Clearly,
said that they weren't. We never
no. We've
said that
always
they weren't.
we've given more than enough credit to Ohio State's talent, top to bottom.
100%. We thought that this was going to be Indiana's time, that they were going to go in there and change it. And look, you know what? Call me crazy. It was 7-7. And then a muff punt and deflated that team, gave Ohio State the ball at the 10-yard line, put the offense right back on the field, only to, you know, not do well again. Like, so that's the thing is I think if this game is played 10 times, I think Ohio State probably wins 7 of them. But I think there's a
At
real
least.
world where Indiana definitely wins 2 or 3. I banked on it being one of those days.
Hmm.
Kurt Signetti did too. He did not know that the things that happened were going to happen. So look,
Hmm.
as much as I do want to sit here and say, "Oh, well, they got flattened and paced and blah 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 blah," I really still don't really believe that's the case. I always say Ohio State's a better team. I will stay with that, and they should be. They should be because Indiana was a nobody team last year, so they should be. Just definitely frustrating for Indiana to not just lose, but just lose in that kind of way. Almost to feel like Indiana beat themselves. I feel like more than Ohio State really truly beat Indiana to an extent. There was I would say 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, Kurt Signetti, he might have needed to Google Ohio State, um, because yeah, just listen. Maybe. Well, maybe nothing actually. Like this is a clear yeah, Ohio State's clearly on a different level, and credit to them. And Ohio State. Now I guess we'll definitely touch on this in a later show before the playoffs. But if Ohio State gets that five spot is a sneaky good spot to be
Yeah.
in. Um, their path could be very easy, and they're more than talented enough to take advantage of it. So we'll see what's to come with Ohio State. Indiana, still a great season so far, only that one loss. And yeah, schedule, is it great? No, it's not. Whatever, get over it. I don't really care. You play who's on your schedule. They've beaten everyone on their schedule except Ohio State, which, by the way, most of these teams aren't beating Ohio State. So I don't want to hear it because if you put Alabama up against Ohio State, guess who's winning? Ohio State. If you put Tennessee up against Ohio State's winning that game. Ole Miss, Ohio State's winning that game. Listen, Florida might have a chance, but um, Georgia, Oklahoma. I think I think Ohio State might win that game. But yeah, Ohio State's really good, and Indiana lost to a great team actually.
Yeah.
Maybe the most talented in the country. So that's pretty much all I have on that game. Um, Another miss by us, which seems to be a theme um, today. But let's get to a topic that isn't a game, but it is that time of year, or around that time of the year when recruits start flipping, changing commitments. And one team that we have talked about already this episode that is benefiting from that massively more than any other team recently, or so far, is Florida, who's just been flipping recruits like crazy. You had Tramel Jones, the four-star quarterback, flip from FSU. You had a few guys flip from
Yeah.
FSU, and then on Monday just a flurry of three guys. They've been coming little flurries. It's been the Tramel Jones was like a group of couple, and then on Monday it was a group of three, including four-star linebacker Ty Jackson, who flipped from USC, which by the way, USC Lincoln Riley, maybe change up the whole Southern recruiting strategy and look in your backyard of California where maybe you don't aren't aware, perhaps, but if you're listening, which I'm sure you are, just letting you know, California, good talent there. So you don't have to just, try to recruit from Florida and Texas to go all the way to USC cross country because those guys like Ty Jackson might decide to stay in Florida. And that's what he did, obviously. That's a huge get for the Gators and for Napier. They flipped receiver Muiz Tunkara. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but sounds about right. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. They flip him from Arizona, which, by the way, the state of Arizona seems to be a pipeline for the Gators as well. Um, they get the transfers from Arizona State, and they seem to flip guys from Arizona. So very interesting. And then lineman Medlock from Cincinnati, 3-star. Him and Muiz, both 3 stars. And it's just like all of a sudden, this recruiting class that was, not good a month and a half ago was in the 50s, I think, ranked, and was like, we talked about it. We were like, yeah, Billy, one of, the thing that his defenders have held on to has been his recruiting classes and the recruits he gets. And all of a sudden, that's not no longer an excuse they can make because this recruiting class isn't going to be good. But this recruiting class is good now because Florida has put in the performances. And by the way, they might get some more guys. Solomon Thomas, 5-star lineman, Florida State commit. I don't think he's going to Florida State. And I saw today it's like it's opened up to Florida and LSU and by listen, Florida probably has the edge over LSU. He's probably going to want to say I think that's going to end up with the Gators. And so it feels momentum is swinging like crazy towards the Florida Gators right now. And again, good for those freshmen and sophomore. They did it.
I mean, college football, I mean, it's particularly college football. Winning is so substantial. And I think one of the things that a lot of people, including myself, sometimes we were a little bit worried about with NIL was a team cannot win and still recruit better. But guess what? That's not the reality. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
to an extent, yes. But I'm not surprised by this because
Mhm.
Florida's got a I mean, Florida's one of the most fun stadiums to be in on a
Y-
Saturday
Yeah, it's as
when
loud
they're
as it
winning.
gets.
It's as loud as
Yeah.
it gets. It's the pinnacle of SEC football. They've got a cool culture there. They've got a good history there. The fan base is hard. There's a lot of heart there.
Hmm.
Um, and man, if I was a recruit and I'm watching the last 2 weeks of football and I'm watching especially a team really rally behind a coach, really rally behind a coach, why wouldn't I want to be a part of that? And
Yeah.
especially when a lot of your competitors, the likes of FSU, who as an 18-year-old would want to go play football at Florida State right now? Who would want to go play at Arizona right now? Who would want to go
No.
play for Brian Kelly, who's yelling and
Yeah.
getting yelled at by players on live television? These
Yeah.
are all legitimate things. And as much as NIL is, and I mean, yes, Florida, I still, you know, not to say that Florida doesn't have NIL in their favor, they definitely do. But, I'm not surprised by this. And I think that this is huge for the future of Florida, and they'll probably get some good transfer portal players too. I could definitely see them beefing up some positions.
Hmm.
Um,
Probably receiver, replace some guys that are going
receiver,
out.
yeah, receiver, good. Could probably get some good O line transfers too. I'm interested to see who they're going to try to bring in to back up. Well, if you get Tramel Jones in, you may not need another transfer guy as a quarterback. But speaking of real quick, I want to touch on something here that's a little bit different. Speaking of quarterback, like transfer or quarterback, like new quarterbacks, Bryce Underwood flips
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
LSU to Michigan,
Yeah.
which is kind of surprising, right? Because Michigan's not having a great year, but maybe it's not surprising because Michigan's not having a great year because he knows most likely he's going to be able to walk in there and play, and
Yeah.
he knows that next year he's going to probably still. I don't know what Nussmeier's going to do. I don't know
I
what
think
they're.
Nussmeier stays. I think Nussmeier ends up staying.
I think so
Should end up
too.
staying.
He should. But again,
My
I
pro
wouldn't want to go.
prospect. Shout out.
I wouldn't want to go play for Brian Kelly. I mean, I'm definitely a bias there, but I mean
Right.
that's important. And you know what? LSU has lost some games and hasn't looked great. And again, that's a legitimate thing for a kid that is coming into college football.
I mean, listen, Bryce Underwood, you have two options, or had two options. One, stick with LSU and go play from Brian Kelly, or go get your 14 million from Michigan. After what, 2 weeks of phone calls with Tom Brady telling you, go be a Wolverine and go get that money. I'll mentor you probably. So, I know it sounds like a tough decision on paper because, of course, Brian Kelly, the ultimate player's coach, and people seem to love playing for him. And the culture at LSU, obviously a great one, where very collaborative efforts seems to be. Game day just flawless, but you know, I guess he couldn't turn down that money.
Simple as. I'm interested, but going back, I am interested to see where Florida finishes in the recruiting and who they get in the transfer portal. I think Florida has potential to be with Lagway next season and 2 seasons later, a really, really good team, which is crazy.
hmm
It's crazy to say that out loud.
Yeah, if I had to put money on Heisman, I've
Oh
already
my
mentioned this, but
God. Oh my God.
I mean,
He's
give me
drinking
Lagway.
some dude.
Oh,
I think
listen,
you've
it's
been drinking
sophomore
some
season.
Kool-Aid, dude.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Manziel? Manziel year?
Not even that was that. This is like a real like second year starting for Lagway essentially. This is like a lot of he's gotten a lot of experience this year. That's why I'm
Facts.
so high on it because he's gotten so much experience his freshman season that other freshmen just don't get. Usually it's like yeah, you'll see like the redshirt sophomores, the juniors that are in their second year starting. That's when they get their Heisman's. Lagway's going to be in his second year starting for all intents and purposes. Second year of action, second year playing. So it feels pretty good for that. And that was funny. You just like disappeared from the screen because of the green screen. Um, but yeah, so if it really feels like it could be his time. It should be his time. He's gonna win it before he leaves. I'll say that. I believe that. And Florida, I've got to listen. I'm very high on them. I'm very high on them. But we'll get to it. We'll get to that when we get to it because next season is a season away, as they
Well,
say.
look, I mean, if he's able to get better receivers in there too, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like I think it's game over. So we'll
Oh yeah,
see. I'm interested.
we'll
All right.
see. Okay,
Let's close
last little
this thing
topic.
out.
Yeah, closing segment. And this should be quick because we've kind of sort of touched on a lot of this in the previous little discussions, but just the playoff situation because obviously it looks a lot different today than it did on Friday, than it did Saturday morning because of all the upsets of these teams that we thought were on the are those hater shades?
Nah, just vibing.
Okay. Yeah, man, we're not really gonna hate here. Um, these teams that we thought were gonna establish themselves or find themselves in the playoffs. Alabama, to me, is cooked. Ole Miss is cooked. Um, who else is cooked? Texas A&M essentially is cooked. I mean, they still control their own destiny technically, somehow
BYU.
shockingly, if they beat Texas. But yeah, BYU's cooked. Texas A&M is not going to beat Texas, I don't think. Indiana's, I think, is still making it. I think they're safe thanks to a lot of these losses. So I think they're going to be safe from it. I think the winner of the weekend to me has to be Tennessee because last
Yep.
week we talked about Tennessee as the team that's going to be on the outs because like of these SEC teams because the resume is going to end up being the worst and they had like untimely losses or the untimely loss and it was just going to be tough for them like that after the Georgia game and now they're going to make it because I mean Ole Miss and Alabama completely clear the path. At least I think they completely clear the path and we'll see if Alabama somehow still sneaks in. There needs to be an investigation into the committee, but I don't think they will. And so I think winner of the weekend, Tennessee.
Yeah, my I got a friend that goes to Tennessee. Shout out Evan. He texted
Shout
me
out.
and he said, "Thank you, kind sir, for your team's victory today. Helped us cement our spot in the playoff." I said, you know what? I'd rather you guys be there than some of these other teams that almost snuck in there. Um, I am sad though that Army got cooked by Notre Dame. I'm sad about
Saw that
that.
coming.
Chill. You
The
did call it out.
unpatriotic Notre Dame
They stink.
Irish. They do not like America.
They
Beating
don't like
Army and Navy,
Americans.
just destroying Army and Navy. I don't know what that's
Yep.
about, but
Not chill. Not chill.
not okay. It's not chill at all.
Not
But
okay.
they will make the playoffs. I like how we as a collective, we being the college football world, just kind of forgot about the Northern Illinois loss, which is just like it's just as if it never happened at this point. It's like, yeah, they lost to a literal like who are you program, and we're okay with it, I guess.
Not chill. Not chill. I mean, but in fairness, like everything else they've handled, and they
Yeah,
they can say they beat Texas A&M, even though Texas A&M was a completely different team in week one. So I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see where this ends up. I'm with you. I still think Indiana just has to make it, especially with the way that these SEC teams just killed themselves.
yeah,
Um, that's the problem, and I'm not going to hear any bitching and moaning about you know B word. I'm gonna say it. I'm not going to hear any complaining about being in the SEC. Oh, but the SEC is so hard. Okay, okay. You love being in it when you win, but you
mm.
hate being in it when you lose.
Mm,
So you can't have your cake and eat it too.
I love that.
I
It's
love that.
great. It's a great phrase. Shout out cake. I'm gonna be eating cake soon. Next, yeah, yeah, Thursday. Definitely some cake, some heart, some pie, actually, some hearts. I like that.
Cake or pie? Which one are you more of a fan of?
Pie probably. Yeah.
Really?
Well, cake. It depends. It depends. Like what cake? Like, yeah.
I don't know. What kind of cake do you like?
I don't know. I was thinking like in my head, I was like thinking like birthday cakes. I feel like that's but like yeah, like I'm not. It's like pie over birthday cake, I suppose. It depends. I think ultimately, you know what the right answer is.
What?
It doesn't matter which one you order, as long as you get yourself a little espresso martini boat with it. You get a little
The
cannoli
flight.
espresso martini, the flight, the little cannoli EM. Um,
Simba.
what? Shout out Simba. Shout out Lion King. Aren't they making a live action Lion King?
Didn't
No, that
they
already
do
came out.
that? Yeah.
Wait, hold on. They're making another one. Let me look this up.
Aren't they
Lion
making one
King.
with people in it?
Yeah, live action.
No.
Yeah.
Well, they have a
Oh,
Broadway one.
no,
I
no.
saw that.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, there was in 2019 they made like a they made one that they made a remake. Oh, yeah, yeah, there is another movie coming out. Mufasa, The Lion King is coming out this year. I guess about Mufasa,
Really?
obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the insight, dog.
Yeah, that makes
Oh,
sense.
go Magic, dude.
Yeah, I knew I saw that.
Go Magic. I don't care about anything else. Go Magic.
Orlando Magic. Orlando
Orlando
Magic.
Magic.
Who's that signed
Orlando.
by? For Allen.
Uh, Glenn Davis and Jason Richardson, I think. I might be
Glenn
wrong.
Davis.
Big Baby Davis.
Shout out. He's in jail,
Shout out.
prison.
What?
Yeah.
Glenn Davis is in jail.
Yeah, hold on, let me. Yeah, 40 months for healthcare fraud. Yeah.
Nobody told me this, bro.
Yeah.
So I have to throw the hat away? Nah.
No, no.
Healthcare fraud as an
It's not
NBA player is wild.
you're fine on the hat though.
Doing time. How's his mugshot?
I don't know.
Glenn
Um,
Davis mugshot. Oh my God. Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh no, this one's when he got arrested with marijuana. Glenn Big Baby Davis. Wow. Shout out to him. He's a good guy. Makes you cry.
Shout out. Hootie and the Blowfish.
Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah, it makes you cry. He's such a baby. The Dolphins make you cry. Darius Rucker.
I know who they are. I just didn't know that song.
Yeah, he's a Dolphins fan.
Darius.
So
Oh,
he's such a baby. The Dolphins make him cry.
what does that mean?
That the Dolphins stink. Make him
Wait,
cry.
is this a song or is this just a you're saying this?
No, it's like a lyric.
He's such a baby, the Dolphins make him cry is a song lyric.
I'm such a baby. The Dolphins make me cry.
Like the Miami Dolphins or like the
Yeah.
Dolphins?
No, like Miami Dolphins.
What an idiot.
Well, valid. From 1994. That's how long it's been. We were actually not even that down then. We had Marino, but yeah, goes to show you. Anyway, what a ramble. What a
Didn't you say that you would cry if the Dolphins won the Super Bowl, but not if the Gators won the championship?
mhm.
God, you stink.
I mean, it's just what would happen.
So what you wouldn't cry when the Gators would you just be like true?
No, I'd celebrate. It'd be like a happy like a celebratory happy, but not like an
What
emotional
the
like.
Dolphins would be sad?
No, it would like touch me though.
Yeah. You and Glenn Davis, dude. Alrighty. Okay. We hope that you guys all have a great Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. Eat turkey, fall asleep watching some games. Go Lions on Thursday. Also, shout out. I bet
Go
people
Dolphins on
watching.
Thursday. Go Dolphins on Thursday night.
Who do they play?
The Packers.
Who do the Dolphins play? The Bears?
The Packers.
Who do the
Dolphins
Dolphins?
play the Packers.
Sorry, the Lions. I'm blanking.
The Lions play the Bears, I think.
Yeah, it would have to be the Bears.
Uh,
Why are the Dolphins playing on Thanksgiving? Wanted to?
because we are. Um, because we're a premier team. Listen, we'll help you out. We'll
Understandable.
beat the Packers, which helps you, the Lions.
We don't need no help, dude.
Well,
But we'll take it
I
though if you're
mean,
offering.
yeah, you'll take it.
All right, bet.
I mean, it's only a two game difference between you guys. I mean, the Vikings are only, one game behind. So,
Chill with all that.
anyways, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, we hope that everybody watching has a great Thanksgiving. We're gonna try to put an episode out soon. We're gonna figure it out
We'll figure it
because
out.
obviously I'm not gonna do it while I'm eating turkey. You don't want us to
Mm-mm.
see that. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We will catch you in the next episode where we will get both of our locks right, and then I will be in Tallahassee on
One last
Saturday.
lock. One last lock.
One last lock. Come on, we got it.
Shout
We
out.
need it.
Shout
All
out.
right. Bye, people.
See you.